And also, Bakul Rahmah initiative for the hardcore poor to be distributed this Ramadan. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim has instructed all deputy ministers under the unity government to focus on implementation of plans to effect change, which would benefit the people. Now, this was among the advice relayed by Dr. Sri Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, at the Unity Government Deputy Ministers Retreat Programme 2023 at Seri Perdana today, which was attended by all deputy ministers. The event was also attended by Chief Secretary to the Government, Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki Ali, and Treasury Deputy Secretary General, Policy, Dato' Johan Mahmud Merikan. The Prime Minister's department said the retreat was held to strengthen and fine-tune cooperation and unity among the government's deputy ministers. The program featured special briefings encompassing aspects geared towards improving service delivery and strengthening governance within the administration. They included touch points for the government's key performance indicators, KPI, government structure and public administration affairs, financial management and government procurements, integrity and governance, government protocol and professionalism, as well as media communications. Meanwhile, Deputy Communications and Digital Minister Tioni Ching said the Prime Minister was focused on the performance of his administration and had stressed on how each Deputy Minister has to bring about reform as soon as possible.
Kerana beliau berpandangan bahawa rakyat pun tak sabar lagi. Mereka nak nampak itu outcome secepat mungkin. Jadi saya rasa ini memang merupakan satu peringatan yang sangat penting untuk semua yang berpegang jawatan dalam kerajaan ini supaya kita memberi fokus supaya boleh bawalah perubahan dalam tempoh masa yang paling singkat.
A bill related to contract governance will be tabled in Parliament as a guide for procedures on procurement and award of contracts. Speaking to reporters after appearing as a guest on Selamat Pagi Malaysia as well as on the Nasional FM's program in Angkasa Puri today, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said the proposed bill is an extension of the existing Treasury governance and regulations.
Dari segi muri garis panduan bukan hanya terhadap spesifikasi sesuatu perkhidmatan ataupun produk ataupun kerja-kerja, tetapi juga dari segi harga dan juga dari segi tempoh waktu dan juga dari segi kualiti terhadap perkhidmatan atau barangan yang dibekalkan. Dan yang lebih penting ialah agar tidak ada ketirisan disebabkan oleh faktor-faktor yang melibatkan rasuah, yang melibatkan keuntungan yang terlalu tinggi atau perkara-perkara yang menyebabkan rakyat akan terbeban dengan akibat-akibat daripada tata kelola yang tidak diikuti dalam prosedur baru yang akan diaktakan ini.
Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid said the existing guideline is only in the form of an instruction from the Treasury. More importantly, he said once the bill is enacted, all governance and management will be bound by the law, and if there are some elements of violation, leakage and abuse of power, the offenders will be punished according to the law. The Ministry of Health (MOH) will utilise the 36.3 billion ringgit allocation received through Budget 2023 by prioritising the upgrading of health facilities nationwide, especially those over 50 years old. Its Minister, Dr. Zaleha Mustafa, said the ministry had identified 1,200 health clinics categorised as dilapidated or affected by the high operational burden during the COVID-19 pandemic. She said there are many health clinics over 50 years old, including in rural and suburban areas. However, 400 clinics will be prioritised for the allocation to be used effectively. Dr. Zaliha said the government had approved an allocation of 340 million ringgit to repair 400 dilapidated clinics and hospitals nationwide, 160 million ringgit to maintain medical equipment under the Medical Equipment Enhancement Tenure, and 100 million ringgit to replace obsolete medical equipment. She said this to reporters after the handing over of the Segamat Hospital new building project today. On Thursday, Dr. Zaliha said MOH had submitted an application for special allocations to improve and upgrade health facilities across the country with immediate effect, considering that 1,200 of its 3,119 health clinics are over 50 years old, in a poor and dilapidated condition, with most of them built on wood structures. The Ministry of Higher Education, MOHE, is starting to introduce a flexible system of learning from home to help reduce student loans at public institutions of higher education. Its Minister, Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid Nordin, said the initiative was also seen to help reduce the costs of living for students.
Pelajar tak perlu pinjam. Maknanya dia belajar di rumah. Dia pakai IT, komputer. Jadi dia satu cara hidup dia tak adalah. Sebab dia duduk di rumah. Iuran tu mungkin akan kurang sebab dalam masa dia di rumah tu mungkin dah cara mengajar tu pakai online semua dah mungkin kurang lah. Jadi fasiliti universiti pun dah kurang pakai.
Speaking at a press conference after inaugurating the My Binary Unity Scholarship in Johor Bahru today, he said the Learning from Home initiative also received requests from students as it had been done when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country. The Human Resources Ministry is studying other methods to speed up compensation payments to Social Security Organisation SAHIH contributors who have been rejected by the Medical Board. Its Minister V. Sivakumar said currently SAHIH was bound by existing law, which is to pay compensation based on legal provisions and through the advice of doctors and the Appeals Board. Sivakumar also said that the ministry would conduct several engagement sessions with SAHIH before tabling amendments to the Employment Insurance System Act 2017 soon to encourage more women to return to work. On the Housewife's Social Security Scheme, SKSSR, he said that 142,079 housewives have contributed under the scheme between 1st December last year till 20th February. From the total, 135,281 individuals registered with kasih and contributed through the Employees Provident Funds, EPFI Suri, with their contributions being sponsored by the government for a year. He also said that 776,742 people out of almost 2 million job seekers registered with My Future Jobs managed to find new jobs as of 10 February. Next in our bulletin, Kemas volunteer assistants to receive higher allowance in March. Stay with us. The Bakul Rahmah initiative by the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living, KBDN, to help the hardcore poor nationwide is expected to be distributed starting this Ramadan. Its Minister, Datuk Seri Salahuddin Ayub, said that the initiative will involve a total of 18,000 out of 37,000 hardcore poor households nationwide who will receive a Bakul Rahmah each, containing basic necessities worth 100 ringgit. Elaborating further on the matter, the minister said, for the first phase, half of the 130,000 hardcore poor households are being targeted throughout the year. Met by reporters in Johor Bahru today, he said, with the current allocation, 18,000 Bakul Rahmah will be distributed first. Meanwhile, regarding Pakaian Raya Rahmah, Raya Clothing initiative, Datuk Seri Salahuddin said it will be announced later, after the engagement session with the textile industry is completed next week.
Di samping dengan industri tekstil, juga minggu depan ini saya akan memuktamadkan dengan beberapa players yang akan saya umumkan apakah bentuk jualan rahmah raya yang akan mereka kemukakan.
Yesterday, 100 million ringgit was announced in Budget 2023 to ensure the Payung Rahmah initiative's success. The monthly allowance for more than 9,400 volunteer community assistants at Community Development Department Kemas kindergartens across the nation will be increased from 500 ringgit to 800 ringgit starting next month. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said the increment of allowance was in appreciation of the contribution of Kemas members in implementing various efforts to improve the quality of life of the rural community.
Anggota PPMS ini di seluruh negara dan ini juga melibatkan tambahan peruntukan sebanyak 86.6 juta ringgit yang dipohon oleh Jabatan Kemas melalui kementerian, dan kementerian mendapat peruntukan yang disetujui oleh Kementerian Ekonomi dan juga Kementerian Kewangan sebagaimana yang diumumkan oleh Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri.
Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid was speaking to reporters after a working visit to the headquarters of the Central Terengganu Development Authority, Ketengah, an agency under the Rural Development Ministry in Dungun today. Now, the setup of the Children's Development Department is estimated to cost 86 million ringgit, according to Datuk Seri Nancy Shukri. The Women, Family and Community Development Minister said most of the costs would mainly come from the need to hire a large amount of new staff to run the department. She said that most of the officers currently in the ministry have their hands full with many takings on several different roles, from administrative tasks to organising events and helping victims make police reports to providing consultation for victims. She added these are some of the tasks that on-duty officers are in charge of daily.
Jadi sebab itu ianya perlu dimulakan sedikit demi sedikit kerana kita tak dapat ambil bajet untuk semua. Namun begitu, yang penting kelulusan dulu. Bila ada kelulusan, perancangan kita tu boleh kita atur semula. Sebab kita sudah buat perancangan, sudah buat proposal pun sudah, tapi ianya tidak dapat dijalankan secara langsung terus menyeluruh mengenai apa yang telah kita propose.
Speaking to the media after launching the Wanita Bangkit at KPWKM Entrepreneurship Program today, Dr. Sri Nancy said that a large number of new staff must be hired and trained for the new department in addition to the other costs. She added that setup of the new department would likely be done in phases due to the budget constraints, and that more comprehensive details would only be revealed later on. When tabling Budget 2023 yesterday, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim announced that the Women, Family and Community Department Ministry will establish a Child Development Department under the purview of the Social Welfare Department to provide more comprehensive support services to children. The government, through Railway Assets Corporation (RAC), will build a temporary fenced walkway connecting the Immigration, Customs, Quarantine and Security (ICQS) complex to the KTM railway station in Padang Besar. Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said the government had given its approval for the route for the convenience of the public, especially travellers. The pedestrian bridge connecting the railway station to the ICQS complex was closed in September 2020 due to security reasons. He said the closure of the pedestrian bridge had inconvenienced travellers because they had to ride a taxi from the railway station to Padang Besar town.
Yang sementara ni kita selesaikan dulu sebab yang ini yang pengembara ataupun travellers kita harapkan. Kalau itu tak kita selesaikan dulu, sejurus selepas mereka turun kereta api untuk akses ke kawasan membeli belah ni, mereka kena gunakan kereta sewa Grab dan mereka kena bayar lebih sebab mereka kena pusing hampir 5 km.
Met by reporters today, he said RAC is now in the final stage of appointing a contractor for the project, which is expected to cost 300,000 ringgit. Construction is expected to take about 4 months to complete. He said Padang Besar is the second busiest entry point in the north after Bukit Kayu Hitam in Kedah, and tourists' arrival has reached more than 1 million post-COVID-19 pandemic. Datuk Sri Saifuddin Nasution said the project was a temporary measure as the government will be constructing a new pedestrian bridge costing 3 million ringgit connecting the ICQS and the KTM railway station. The Perak state government will organise various interesting carnival programs in conjunction with National Journalist Day, Havana 2023, that will take place in Ipoh from 27 to 29th May. Perak Menteri Besar Datuk Sri Sarani Mohamad said the activities will involve various entrepreneurial and tourism agencies in the state that will promote their products. He said the state government will make the most of Visit Ipoh Year and Visit Perak Year, as well as the launch of the Perak Sejahtera 2030 plan.
Jadi saya minta Yang Amat Sesukan Negeri akan bersama-sama dengan mereka untuk menjadi urusia bersama. InsyaAllah kita akan cuba menjayakannya dan dipahamkan Yang Amat Menteri akan hadir pada malam akhir, pada malam jamuan makan malam.
He added he had met the Communications and Digital Ministry Deputy Secretary General, Strategic Communications and Creative Industry, Mastura Ahmad Mustafa, and her assistant, along with Bernama regarding Havana recently. He said this to reporters after officiating the Hulu Perak District Perak Entrepreneur Day 2023 roadshow at Arena Dato' Hasbullah in Gerik today. Datuk Sri Sarani said that the Havana 2023 event in the state would see the participation of thousands of media practitioners. Polls open in Nigeria's presidential election. There are more coming up in our front segment. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz arrived in India today for his fourth meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, reflecting Delhi's growing importance to Western powers, seeking backing for their opposition to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Both covered various topics ranging from deepening economic ties to the situation in Ukraine. Modi has been seeking to steer an ongoing Group of 20 G20 meeting away from discussion of the war in Ukraine. His government has not openly criticized Moscow for the invasion and instead called for dialogue and diplomacy to end the war. Modi added India and Germany were committed to realizing their untapped potential in sectors such as security and defense cooperation. Scholz is accompanied by a large business delegation, and Germany will also push hard for a $5.2 billion deal to sell India 6 conventional submarines, although an immediate result is not expected. Scholz last met Modi at the G7 summit of leading rich industrial nations, to which he invited the Indian Prime Minister as part of outreach efforts that have become all the more urgent as concerns grow that China may step up its so far lukewarm political support for Russia. The European Union has agreed on the 10th package of sanctions against Russia, said the Swedish presidency of the EU Council recently. Now, the presidency said the package includes, for example, tighter export restrictions regarding dual-use goods and technologies, among others. It said the package also includes targeted restricted measures against individuals and entities that have supported Russia's special military operation in Ukraine and delivered drones for Russia to be used in the military operation. On the same day, the United States announced that the country will coordinate with other group of 7 G7 nations to pile new sanctions on Moscow, according to a statement released by the White House. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Tuesday that the Russian economy has withstood Western sanctions and performed, quote, much stronger than the West believed. He noted the latest data showed that Russia's GDP declined by 2.1% in 2022, beating an economic downturn of 20 to 25% predicted by Western analysts early last year. Nigerians started voting today to elect a successor to President Muhammadu Buhari, with many hoping the next leader will steer Africa's most populous nation and biggest economy on a new course after years of worsening violence and hardship. Polling stations were scheduled to open at 8:30 a.m., though Reuters staff at several locations across the country saw some that were not ready. Buhari, a retired army general, is stepping down after serving the maximum 8 years allowed by the constitution, but failing to deliver on his pledge to bring back order and security across Nigeria, Africa's top oil-producing nation. The main contenders in the race to succeed Buhari are former Lagos Governor Bola Tinubu, 70, of the ruling All Progressives Congress, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, 76, of the main opposition People's Democratic Party, and former Anambra State Governor Peter Obi, 61, of the smaller Labour Party. More than 93 million people are registered to vote for the next president, and members of the National Assembly, some 176,600 polling stations, were scheduled to be open between 8:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Vote counting will begin as soon as polls close, and results will be posted outside polling stations. The final tally for the 36 states and federal capital Abuja is expected within 5 days of voting. Survivors are still caught in fears days after last week's rain-triggered landslides in Brazil's Sao Paulo state, which claimed at least 57 lives, including at least 13 children. Rescuers are racing against time, searching for dozens of people feared trapped under mountains of mud in the most severely affected municipalities of São Sebastião, Ubatuba, Caraguatatuba, Ilhabela and Bertioga. In Vila do Sahi of the municipality of São Sebastião, local residents said the popular tourist town close to the exclusive beach resorts of Baleia and Camburi became unrecognizable with knee-deep mud and debris covering its streets. Over 1,000 residents were forced to temporarily move to a nearby school as their homes were damaged in landslides. One of the residents said that it has been 5 days since the disaster took place and there are still a lot of people buried under the debris. He said the mudslides also has ruined quite a lot of things in the area. He added that unfortunately many people lost their lives in the disaster, including many kids as well. And moving on to sports, KBS assures transparency in application for allocations. Stay with us. The Malaysian Paralympic Council, MPM, hopes that the 324 million ringgit allocation for sports development announced by the government in Budget 2023 will be distributed equally to the relevant parties, including para-athletes. Its president, Datuk Seri Megadi Syahriman Zaharuddin, said distribution of funds for training and sports facilities should be done fairly and without discrimination, especially for the country's athletes with disabilities. Elaborating further, Datuk Seri Megad said, in the meantime, MPM would make full use of the allocation in accordance with its 4 focus areas to enhance the development of para-sports at the grassroots. He said the 4 focus areas were efforts to unearth more new talent, development classification, championship programs for 27 sports associations, and the Para-Sports Awareness Program. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, who is also the Finance Minister, when tabling Budget 2023 yesterday, announced that the government has allocated 324 million ringgit for sports development, upgrading sports facilities and enhancing training programs for all athletes. Meanwhile, the Youth and Sports Ministry, or KBS, has assured that the application for allocations by National Sports Association and SAHIH for Budget 2023 will be done transparently. Now, its Minister Hannah Yeoh said KBS would display all information on its website regarding the amount applied for and the programs implemented by the NSAs based on the allocation provided. Commenting further on the matter, the minister said the budget is also different because each sport had its own number of athletes and costs, as well as differing amounts for grassroots development. She said to make it transparent, if an association seeks 100,000 ringgit, for example, then other associations can see on the KBS website what they have done with the funds. She also said that the KBS would ensure the provision of the 50 million ringgit matching grant by the government and the budget 2023 would not be wasted and used in the best possible way for the country's sports programs. The provision of the 50 million ringgit fund is to encourage private sector sponsorship for sports of programs, especially unity-based sports, organisation of tournaments at the national level, and reality sports programs. Hannah also confirmed that the 20 million ringgit set aside for the construction of a drag circuit, as announced during the budget 2023, tabling by former Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz last October, had been dropped. And on to football, Johor Darul Ta'zim JDT began the 2023 season in style by defeating Terengganu FC TFC 2-0 in the Charity Shield match to clinch the Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Cup for the 6th time in a row last night. Now, the match, which also acts as the season opener for the Malaysia League competition, sees JDT take all 3 points in their quest to win the Super League title for the 10th straight time. In last night's match, the Southern Tigers scored a goal in each half through Juan Muniz in the 5th minute and Bergson da Silva in the 55th minute. It didn't take long for JDT, under the guidance of new coach Esteban Solari of Argentina, to explode into life as Spaniard Muniz introduced himself to local football fans with a brilliant header off a cross from Bergson. The visitors, who fielded their 2 foreign signings, Thai sensation Adisa Kraison and Croatian Ivan Mahmud, struggled to get their game going and failed to breach the JDT defence in the first half. After the break, Arif Aiman Mohammad Hanapi missed a glorious chance to extend JDT's lead when he beat 3 players in the box before shooting straight at TFC goalkeeper Muhammad Suhaimi Hussein. But JDT were not to be denied the second goal as Bergson da Silva struck in the 55th minute, with the Brazilian coolie using his knee to slot the ball home off a cross from Arif Aiman. And in tennis, Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz battled past Serb Dusan Lajovic to advance to the semi-finals of the Rio Open night in Brazil. The 19-year-old Spaniard rallied from 2-4 in both the first and second sets before putting away the world number 80 for the second time in as many weeks, having beaten the 29-year-old 6-4, 6-2 in the Buenos Aires quarterfinals. Despite clubbing 32 winners to Lajovic 13 and winning 16 of 17 net approaches, Alcaraz will not be entirely happy with his performance after forcing himself to work harder than perhaps needed for victory. In addition to going down breaks in both sets and making 25 unforced errors, the Spaniard was broken at 5-all in the second, despite holding a 40-love lead in the game. The former world number 1 was forced to save a set point with some inspired play at net in the following game before running away with the win in the tiebreak. Closing in on back-to-back titles after triumphing in Buenos Aires last week in his second debut, the world number 2 will meet Chilean qualifier Nicolas Hari. Should he win his 8 tour-level title Sunday, Alcaraz will join world number 1 Novak Djokovic with 7,070 points in the Pepperstone ATP rankings. But the 10-time Australian Open champion will remain atop the rankings because he has earned more points at mandatory events during the past 52 weeks. Wrapping up the news at 10, in our top story, deputies to effect reform and change as soon as possible. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon on TV2 for the updates at noon. Till then, I'm Brendan LaPaul. Take care.